Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my belated July wrap-up. The first book that I read this month is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is the first book in a duology and it was pushed back and I was really upset about that, and then I didn't read it right when it came out, but I finally got to it and I loved it even more than I thought that I was going to. The story was so beautiful. It's one of those ones where it's just really hard to explain. Also, just appreciate how beautiful this is and how beautiful the pages are. I read this mostly on my flight from Alaska back to New York, so I had a lot of time. It follows a guy named Laszlo Strange. He is referred to as Strange the Dreamer because he is somebody that is constantly dreaming about things, and he really is an outside of the box kind of thinker, and he's constantly having visions of this lost city. They used to trade with the city and there would be people that would visit from there all the time, but then the visit stopped, and then one day like everyone just forgot about this city. It's the lost city. It's called Weep. That's not the actual name of it, but they're like on this day where everything disappeared. Nobody could remember the name of it, and it was henceforth only referred to as Weep. But Laszlo is constantly plagued with dreams from this place, and he's obsessed with like finding it. So he becomes a librarian, and he spends his life like studying this place that most people make fun of him for because they're like, it doesn't exist. Different circumstances happen. He ends up getting a chance to travel there, and to kind of try to uncover the mystery of what's going on in Weep. And it's just so beautiful. I mean, Laini Taylor always writes beautifully, but like, whoa, this was amazing. I was just so into it. I've heard a lot of other people say that the first like 70 pages or so can be a little bit challenging to get into before you know what's going on. I did not have that problem at all. I was immediately interested in Laszlo and the story of everything that was going on. I don't know, I just found myself so like enthralled by this mystery and just so like moved by how beautiful all of the writing is, how beautiful this place is, and just, oh my gosh, it was so good. This was obviously 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot wait for the second book in the series because, oh man, so good. Then I read Top 10 by Katie Cotugno, and this was one of my most anticipated fall releases. It's coming out, I want to say October 3rd. It just says October. So this book was really, really good. I actually think it might be my second favorite Katie Cotugno book that I've read so far. So it follows two best friends, Ryan and Gabby. The way that the story is told is really fun because it's the two of them that have been best friends for so long. They've definitely had their ups and downs, which you will see if you read this book, but it's them remembering their top 10 moments from high school. So the book starts in the present, then it kind of jumps around from them remembering their top 10 moments, and then it goes back to present time at the end, and I just felt like this was such a realistic portrayal of the kinds of like fights that friends will get into, but still ultimately friends love each other and are on each other's side no matter what, so they might get into some kind of argument, but something important would happen and the two of them would obviously be drawn back together. So I really, really enjoyed reading about that. And it also touched upon a bunch of things that I feel like are not usually talked about. Anxiety is definitely becoming a more prevalent topic in young adult literature, which I really appreciate. Gabby suffers from anxiety. I would say she has a pretty severe case of it. And Ryan is a hockey player, and he is often getting concussions and having other issues coming from those concussions. And that's something that I've just never heard talked about in YA literature before. I think that's a topic that is like pretty much never breached, but it's also interesting because I want to say it was like a month ago that I got an alert from the New York Times that it's officially been linked that like sports related concussions are like 100% responsible for brain damage and for people dying early, and it's something that nobody really talks about. And high school is usually when you would be getting the most into those kinds of things, so it's really good to take that into consideration when you're just like making choices and seeing if you've been injured, whether you should continue doing what you're doing or if maybe it's a good stopping point. I really loved it. It was very well written, as all Katie Cotugno books are. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. I read this like so quick because it was just so enjoyable. Then I finally read Serafina and the Black Cloak by Robert Beatty, and this is the first book in the Serafina series, and I really enjoyed this one. It was a really fun middle grade adventure story, and it's very atmospheric. It has like a dark gothic-y kind of feel to it. It takes place at the Biltmore Estate in North Carolina, and it follows Serafina, who has been living in the basement of this estate with her father, but nobody knows that she exists there. And then she ends up having to team up with one of the Vanderbilts who lives in the main house in order to try to solve the case of all of these disappearances that have been happening. It was really fun. Like, it was a really fun mystery, and I thought that it was very well written. I'm usually not the biggest fan of middle grade, but I found this one to be enjoyable, so I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Then I don't have a copy of it right now, but I'm considering getting another one. I read How to Hang a Witch by Adriana Mather, and this was a really fun read as well. I don't know why, but I just read so many like fall books this month, I think because I cannot wait for the fall season. That is like my season. So How to Hang a Witch follows a girl named Sam who moves back to Salem, Massachusetts. She's never been there before, but that's where her father grew up. Sam is the descendant of Cotton Mather, who is one of the people that was largely responsible for all of the Salem witch trials even like being a thing. So she's his descendant, and then there's a group of descendants of the women who died during the Salem witch trials, and all of them are best friends, and as soon as she moves to town, she's immediately not accepted because she is connected to this man who is responsible for the deaths of ancestors. So there's a lot of tension that's going on there. She does make one friend immediately, who's like her next door neighbor, and despite them being friendly, she never like fully trusts him, but there's a whole mystery that's going on. But once all of the descendants of all of the people that were originally involved in the trials are in town, current descendants tend to start dying and disappearing and stuff. So this is the first time in years that all of them have been in the same place. So things are starting to happen. And so she's just working to solve the mystery and break the curse. And it's a really, really, really atmospheric read. There were a lot of parts that were like a little bit spooky, nothing that was super scary, but there were a couple times where I was like, whoa. I really, really liked it. I thought it was really fun. The writing was very simplistic, so it was very easy to read quickly. It's by no means a book that is going to be like challenging or gonna stay with you forever. It's really just like a fun kind of in the moment read. I really, really enjoyed it way more than I thought that I was going to. And actually the author herself is a descendant of Cotton Mather. And I read this one because I am really excited for the second book, which is Haunting the Deep. And that one has a lot of mysteries tied to the Titanic going on. So yeah, I ended up giving How to Hang a Witch 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read An Enchantment of Revange by Margaret Rogerson, and unfortunately, I did not like this one as much as other people seem to. I really love fairies, and I really loved the premise of this book. It follows a girl who is an artist, and obviously fairies are not able to craft anything themselves, so they will turn to humans for certain things like artwork, which is what Isabel is very talented at. One day she gets a commission from the Prince of the Autumn Court and she draws him, but the way that she draws him, he has human emotion in his eyes, and you can tell that he looks sad, which makes him vulnerable. That is considered a crime against the Autumn Court. So he comes back and takes her so that he can take her into Fairy and try her for her treason. But lots of things happen along the way. Things are not what they seem, and there's a lot of different political things that are going on within the Fae courts that he is not privy to. I really liked the descriptive writing. I loved the world of Fairy in here. I thought that that part was like really good, and it kept me really interested because I just liked hearing about the different courts. But I just was not sold on the love story between Isabel and the Prince of the Autumn Court. He comes back to take her, and then like within a page or two he's in love with her, and I'm just like, how did that happen? The love story just wasn't there for me. It wasn't believable. I didn't see it. So I really liked the concept of the book. I really liked the descriptions of the Fae courts, but I just didn't love the characters, and that made it a little bit harder for me to get through. So I ended up giving this one 3 out of 5 stars, sadly. I still love the cover. Then I read Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders, and this is one of the books that was longlisted for the Man Booker Prize. So I'm really excited that I actually finished reading it a day or two before that list was announced. I'd been wanting to read this one for a while. This is adult literary fiction, and it follows a bunch of bardos, and bardo is the Tibetan word for spirit. It's once you've passed away, but you're kind of stuck where you are because you haven't yet accepted it and you haven't moved on. This had an extra layer of intrigue because the beginning of the book takes place when Abraham Lincoln's son, Willie Lincoln, passes away. Then Willie is in the graveyard as a bardo because he's still a spirit. It's a really important book to read because you can see the way that different people are treated and the way that different lives were valued during that time, which is something that is still definitely very relevant today. It was a really thought-provoking read. Also, the way that it was written was different than anything that I've ever read before. So George Saunders would have certain chapters where he would pull tidbits from history, from different people's accounts of things that happened during the Lincoln administration, and there would be like a couple sentences and then it would be credited to whatever the source was. And a lot of times each account would be very contradictory to the one prior to it. So it was just interesting to see, like, there are so many sides to every story and so many things can be interpreted different ways. And then in addition to that, the story was largely told by the rest of the bardos that are in this cemetery. You rarely hear from Willie Lincoln or Lincoln himself. And the way that that was written as well was it's all their dialogue, but instead of having who's speaking at the top, there would be a huge, like, thing of dialogue, and then at the bottom, the same place where the other annotations were, that would be where it said who was saying it. So you really had to pay attention to which characters were which and really get try to grasp the tone of their voice in order to be able to tell who was speaking before you got to see who it was. So it was really challenging, but I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad that I read it. My brother loves George Saunders, so I've been meaning to pick up something by him for so long, and this is his first full-length novel. His whole idea for this novel came because he went to visit the Lincoln Memorial with his wife like 10 years ago. He's been writing this for 10 years, and he found out that once Willie Lincoln passed away, Abraham Lincoln was really affected by his death, and he actually went into the crypt, and a couple of nights he would go there and he would take Willie's body out and hold Willie's body and just, grieve in his own way, and that was something that was unheard of. So it's really sad, but it was really good. It was really beautiful. I definitely suggest reading it if you're looking to be challenged. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Milk and Honey by Ruby Kaur. Oh yeah, I read some of these as part of Booktubeathon. I really low-key participated in Booktubeathon. I gave some updates on Instagram, but I didn't do any videos or anything. And I ended up reading a total of 4 books. So this is the second one. This is a poetry collection, and it was really beautiful, really moving. There were some poems, especially in the beginning, that I couldn't relate to at all, thankfully, because, whoa. And then there were some other ones that I thought were just so beautifully written and that were very relatable, and I feel like this is just a really important collection for especially young girls to read, because there were a lot of poems about when you love someone and then something ends, about being able to move on and getting on, and even just recognizing when maybe different relationships aren't working out, and you could be better off just being strong by yourself. So I really appreciated this, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury, and this was really enjoyable. It's the first book in the Green Tree series. I read this because I really wanted to read Something Wicked This Way Comes around Halloween time, and also I thought this was a good book to read now because this book is pretty much an ode to summer, whereas the second one is an ode to autumn. So I found this to be very enjoyable. It was really fun. It was like a love letter to summer, and there were different things about it that I thought were very interesting. The one thing that I will say is that there were a lot of different characters in this book, so it was sometimes a little bit hard to follow in the sense that there was so much going on, and it was like, what is the story here? Like, everyone has their kind of own thing going on, but some of it isn't necessarily like a climactic story. So I was kind of like in the middle-ish. I was more like, I'm confused about what the point is, but I ended up liking it, and I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. And finally, I read Final Girls by Riley Sager, and I really, really loved this book. A couple of people have also said that the beginning of this is a little bit slow, but then the end is like crazy, which the end is crazy. I did not find the beginning to be slow, and I'm not sure if it is because right before I read this, I had read Lincoln in the Bardo and Dandelion Wine, so this I just kind of like ate up like candy. Like, it was such a quick and easy and fun read for me. It's insane. It follows a girl who is one of the final girls, meaning a girl who has survived a massacre, and it's about her getting on with her life. And there are two other final girls that have survived different massacres. So the three of them have kind of been labeled by the country as final girls, and one of them commits suicide, and then the other two kind of team up to figure out what exactly happened to the other girl, if she really did commit suicide, if something else happened. The ending was so shocking to me, so I really, really liked this one. I'm really glad that I ended up reading it. It was just, again, so quick and so fun, and I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. So those are all of the books that I read in July. I feel like I'm rusty on wrap-ups, and I talked a lot about them, so sorry about that. But yeah, let me know what you read this month. Let me know your favorite book that you read this month, and if you've read any of the ones that I talked about, and I will see you guys soon in a new video. Bye!